Hello and welcome to this video on Hornbeam as a species for bonsai. Hornbeam are a species that are related to the birch family. They're sometimes mistaken for beech trees, although they are distinct species. There are up to 40 species of hornbeams spread across the temperate regions of the Northern Hemisphere. This approximates the areas between Greece and Turkey, all the way to the Netherlands, and everywhere in between. As a general description, they have a very dense texture. They have a lot of foliage and a smooth, grey, very dark grey bark. The leaves darken over summer, then turn yellow in autumn. The tree is deciduous, which means it goes bare of any leaves in winter. The bark and buds are very colourful and you can see them clearly in winter, making it a great winter exhibition tree. As it is very dark, has a very strong and striking trunk. There are a lot of colours throughout the year. It makes for a good bonsai, or at least a popular bonsai. The fact that it can have application as a display specimen throughout the year means it can be preferred by some people. As they grow right across the temperate regions of the Northern Hemisphere, they often survive in conditions that aren't necessarily hospitable. Overall, the tree is considered medium size at about 32 meters in height. Like other species we've mentioned, the nodes for the leaves alternate and have a simple serrated margin. The leaves are naturally occurring at 10 centimeters in length and about half that in width. They also have flowers. The flowers are pollinated on different catechins. The tree itself produces a small nut. It's only a few millimeters long and otherwise unnotable. What is worth noting about the seed is that it has asymmetry, which means that as it falls, it spins. And this is one thing children note particularly about the tree. The greatest distribution of species is found in East Asia, where the variety of terrain and circumstances mean that they've survived by developing unique elements. As a rule of thumb, the hornbeams will grow in all circumstances. You want to avoid some of the most dry and arid of soil conditions, but otherwise, putting them in a good quality potting mix will more than meet their needs. When watering them, you want to avoid letting the soil dry out. You may need to water it daily or several times a day in extreme heat, enough so that water runs out from the bottom of the pot. Because of the way it grows, and we'll discuss this in more detail shortly, you need to ensure it's fertilized regularly. Give it a slow release solid fertilizer. This can be increased every other month or thereabouts, or use a solid fertilizer twice a year and a liquid fertilizer regularly in between. This will be necessary given its growth pattern. The tree's growth needs to be kept in check and trimmed back regularly. You should try and take it back to only 2 branches or 2 nodes. That is, 2 branches or 2 nodes of new growth. Don't remove all of the new growth. This is a good way to have branches die back on you. You need to do this regularly, otherwise the trunk will not grow thicker, and you want a nice thick solid trunk. If you are fortunate to be able to access wild specimens, then you can often cut it back to being a bare trunk with no branches whatsoever. These trees will produce buds, which will then turn into shoots, and in turn produce more buds, leading to more shoots in less than a year. Other than pruning the tree in order to keep its appearance and style, you also want to look at ramification and leaf reduction. Remembering the leaves are up to 10 centimeters in length, far too big for most bonsai styles and sizes. You can defoliate the tree or leaf prune in order to reduce it, and this can be by up to a quarter of its original size. That is 2 to 2.5 centimeters in total length. You should be careful when wiring the tree, as with other species, the wire will readily cut into the bark, and this will cause long-term scarring. The easiest way to get around this is the use of guy wires or strings. Alternatively, you can use padding around the branches, but this can often be difficult to get around the tree. Use of raffia has similar benefits and drawbacks. If you are looking to style the tree either by wiring or pruning, it's a good idea to do so early in spring, but wiring can be done right throughout the growing season. In fact, you can wire and shape and style your tree 3 or more times depending on how beneficial and cooperative the weather conditions are. On rare occasions it might be fewer, but on average you'll get at least 3 opportunities to rewire and style the tree each year. In order to get this growth along with all the other that we've mentioned, you need to keep it outside, in full sun, preferably all year round. There is one exception to this, so to speak. The tree needs to have a period of dormancy in which it can recuperate, in which it goes through some of its necessary processes. It needs about 3 months of cold or cool weather for this to happen. Without this, the tree will not bud or put on as much growth as it should. It's also not going to be as healthy as it otherwise could be. After a couple of years, your tree may need to be repotted. This applies to younger, newer trees. That's roughly every 2 years it needs repotting. For older collected specimens, it may be as many as 5 years before you need to repot it. You'll know when to do this, as the roots will have filled the pot and clearly see them coming out of the bottom of the pot. If the tree is newly collected, do not disturb the roots, even if it appears to be time to repot it. You need to give these roots time to harden off, especially in that first year. If you do it too early, the tree won't have built up enough reserves of energy to come back the next year. If you've collected wild specimens, they can be put into a bonsai pot from the 2nd year onwards, and as mentioned, repotted every 2 to 5 years thereafter. Repotting is done in midsummer, and there are 2 reasons for this. First is that the tree is fully developed and in full bloom. This means it's unlikely to suffer drastically from having its roots pruned and any of the damage that goes with that. Second, because it's in a high growth stage, repotting it means it can pick up and use that nutrient much sooner. This means the risk of the tree dying suddenly is minimized and it can make maximum use of the new soil. It's the usual method of removing 1/3 to 1/4 of the root ball, filling with soil, and then top dressing. Hornbeam are susceptible to most of the same pests as other bonsai, aphids, and similar. One that is particularly important are borers. Borers will create a hole in the trunk and it will not heal. It can also drastically weaken the tree, leading to its death. We advise the use of something like a pyrethrum product in order to deal with the borers, although you'll need to carefully monitor not only the tree that's infected, but other trees in case the borers have spread. In broad summary, the trees here can be used to great effect, and they can be very attractive specimens. Depending on how you get them and how much attention you can give, they can be great trees both for the beginner and more advanced bonsai enthusiasts. Because of their wide availability and wide temperaments and environments in which they can grow, you'll find that most people can at least support and keep one living for quite a while no matter where they are. If you are in some of the more extreme climates, you may need to consider how to deal with that, whether it's grow lights, keeping it at a cool shaded place, and so on. In general though, it's a good tree, you just need to be mindful of some of its quirks and behaviors that make it hard to manage at times. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found the information useful, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions below.